Well, this is a video on the Triumph TR7. This happens to be a 1980 model. They were made from 1974 to 1981. When it first came out, it was renowned for its wedge shape, and the advertising line was, "It's the shape of things to come," quote unquote. Some people liked it, some people not so much. They certainly accentuated the wedge shape with the swoopy stripe up the flanks there, which again some people liked and some people didn't like. The design apparently was sort of done on a napkin by a BMC, British Motor Corporation designer, Harris Mann. It was sort of an offhand sketch which management ended up liking and decided to go with it. Now, the prior car to this was the TR6, which was a 6-cylinder car, but when they were designing this, they had the oil shortage, so they wanted good gas mileage, so they went with a 4-cylinder. This is a convertible, although it's got a aftermarket hardtop on it right now. But the original car that came out was a hardtop or coupe, because at that time everybody thought that the American government was going to ban convertibles because of safety issues. Of course, they never did that, and eventually in 1979 they brought out the convertible cabriolet. The tricky thing about the TR7 was when they first started making it, it was built at a factory in Speke, Liverpool. That was the 1974 to 1978 models, and apparently there was a lot of labor strife there. They were often on strike, and because of that the build quality was extremely poor, and because of that the cars got a horrible reputation for being troublesome, and it never really recovered from that burden. Now, in 1978 they moved the assembly line to Canley in Coventry, and apparently the quality of the build went up considerably. And then from 1980 to 1981 it was moved to the Rover factory in Solihull, again, which was even better. But unfortunately the damage had been done to its reputation by the Speke Liverpool cars, so it never really regained its popularity. Now, there were a lot of changes to the car throughout the years. Interior fabrics changed, they changed the exterior decals a lot, but in the end they built 112,000 coupes and almost 29,000 convertibles or cabriolets. They also stuffed a V8 into them at the very end for the TR8, of which they made about 2,500. The car weighs 2,200 pounds and it's 49 inches high. The engine is a 2-liter 92 horsepower 4-cylinder. Does 0 to 60 in 11 seconds, so it's not exactly a barn burner. But apparently the power was approximately equivalent to the TR6, and the handling was much better in this car. There were a few cars, about 400, that were made with fuel-injected engines for California. came initially with a 4-speed transmission until 1976, when they made an option of a 5-speed manual or an automatic transmission. It has front disc brakes, rear drum brakes, which are not up to modern standards in their stopping ability. It is independent suspension in the front, but a live axle in the back on coil springs with a 4-link rear suspension. It does have anti-roll bars front and rear. Towards the end, when they decided to stuff the V8 in the front compartment, they had to put an extra bulge on the hood to fit over the carburetors for the V8, which was called the double bump hood, which they put on all the cars. So although this is a lowly 4-cylinder, not a V8, you can see the double bump of the hood. So compared to the TR6, it's considered to be better handling, about as fast as the TR6, and more practical, but it does not have the Italian looks, and between that and the poor build quality reputation, it does not enhance the value of the TR7s. What to look out for in a TR7 as far as problems: rust is a big issue in the rocker panels, around the windshield, spare wheel well, the rear trailing arm mounting points, so check out your cars carefully. If you have a coupe or the hardtop with the sunroof, apparently it was made with a wooden framework, so that can have many issues. And the early cars had quite a few electrical problems. Check for a whine in the gearbox. Apparently some of the early gearboxes can have issues. One of the surprising things is, for a not particularly huge car, it has quite a big trunk. This one has its tonneau cover and boot to cover the convertible top in the back, but it is a seriously big trunk. This is the engine, obviously, with its dual carbs, and it's canted over at an angle, and because of that the cylinder head bolts are at an angle, and it's an alloy cylinder head on a cast iron block, and if you have overheating problems it can warp the head, and apparently getting the cylinder head off the engine can be quite a difficult task because of the angle and the bolts being at an angle. Because of that, you should flush your cooling system once in a while to make sure that you don't have a buildup of crud in the coolant passages, which will cause overheating. Apparently steering wheel vibration between 50 and 60 miles an hour is a fairly common problem in TR7s. Water pumps can have issues, and where the shift linkage attaches to the transmission, there are some bushings that can wear out and can cause problems with shifting, but you can replace those and you'll be right back to normal. Another shot of that elegant 2-liter monster engine. Air conditioning was available on these cars, although this one does not have it, but you could get it as an option. It does have power brakes. There's the brake booster, but it does not have power steering. It is rack and pinion steering, however, but it is a little heavy in a parking lot. has a pretty complete gauge package, a clock, temperature, speedo, tachometer, volts, and the gas gauge. Then you have the cheap radio and the vent controls. Of course, it has the pop-up headlights with a switch here. It has a monster-sized glove box that you can just about park the car in, and that's where the fuse box is, believe it or not. And as you can see, it actually has a very nice, roomy, comfortable interior with some space behind the seats, in addition to that huge trunk. Nicely set up. If by chance you're already a TR7 owner and you want to replace your rear shocks, in the Haynes manual they talk about doing it through the trunk, but that is incorrect on this car at least. I'm looking at the back of the driver's seat, and back in the corner you remove a panel to get to the top of the shock, so that applies to both sides. So that's pretty much the story on the shape of things to come. It sold very well initially, especially in the US, until the build quality reputation sort of torpedoed things. It's a fairly easy car to work on, parts are available for not much money, and it is a fun car to drive. So if you can get a later car, it actually is a bit of a hoot to drive around, and it's very tossable. I highly recommend it.